For this question, we are asked to select one of the following products: an alarm circuit, a pair of curtains, metal garden gates, wooden wardrobes. We are told a company currently manufactures the product you have selected for individual customers using one-off production. Due to interest from other customers, they are considering introducing batch manufacturing. Discuss how this change could affect the manufacturing performance of the company. We can see in the bottom right hand corner that this question is worth 10 marks in total. So it is definitely a question that we need to think about, as this is a substantial amount of marks. Let's start by considering the question in more detail. Firstly, we are asked to select one of the products. Now, it is really important here that you think about your specialist material area and that you choose the product that sits the best within this. Doing so will allow you to draw upon your subject-specific and technical knowledge. The second keyword that I have highlighted is manufacturers. Again, it is really important when we are answering this question that our focus is on the manufacturing processes rather than the design process. Individual customers is the next highlight that I have made. It is really important that we realise at the moment the company currently manufactures for individual customers, which is what we know is called one-off production. However, they are considering to move to the second highlighted word of batch manufacturing. Therefore, within this answer, you are asked to discuss the change from one-off to batch production, which will affect the manufacturing performance. Discuss is the command word here, which we must ensure our answer demonstrates. Discuss means that we should set out consideration to both sides, in this case, one-off production and batch manufacturing. For this example, I am going to choose wooden wardrobes as my product. However, the answer is very much the same regardless of the product in this question. This is because the question focuses on one-off and batch production rather than the making of the product itself. To help me start planning my answer to this question, I'm going to jot down on the side of the paper some key words which I think I must mention within my answer. I know that changing the quantity of products can have a significant effect on many of the elements of manufacturing. For instance, materials. The materials used in one-off production are often of the best quality. However, in batch production, I may not be able to buy such a material in a large quantity. Therefore, I may have to change the material or components that I use for manufacturing. When I am making a larger quantity of a product, however, rather than just a one-off, this gives me the opportunity to bulk buy my materials and components, which will make the cost of the materials or components less per unit. The time it takes to make each product will also be decreased in batch production, as the processes of manufacturing are repetitive and the batch will be made in stages, meaning there is less time setting up tools and equipment. For example, all the hinges for the batch would be attached at the same time. This has a positive impact on the costing of each unit. Equally, as the workers will be able to repeat their tasks, they will become quicker and adopt a higher level of competence as they become more familiar with each task. Having said that, however, wages are often lower for workers within batch production, as they are repeating the same job, which means they have a lower skill set in general, which isn't as broad. One-off production often uses workers with a high level of skill to ensure that the individual product is of the very best quality. Experts in certain processes will be used, as each part of the manufacture needs to be right the very first time for this one-off product. There are no second chances. Mistakes can be costly, as it could mean that the manufacture of the entire product may need to begin again with one little mistake. Manufacturing in a one-off product is rarely automated, as the cost and setup of such equipment is so vast. It would increase the cost of the one-off product substantially. Whilst in batch production, the cost of setting up automated equipment can be shared between the number of units that are being manufactured. Therefore, I have added processes to the list, as that is an important point to consider, as is automation. We could also discuss the differences between quality control. In one-off production, there are generally very high levels of quality control, and the product will be checked several times. In batch production, however, there are often only random checks on the products at certain points. Maybe it's every 1 in 10 product, or 1 in 50, 1 in 100, or maybe even 1 in 1,000, depending on the size of the batch. This assumes that all of the other products will be of the same quality due to the repetitive nature of the manufacturing process. This means that inspection costs are lower. However, in batch production, some products may slip through which are not of the quality one would expect. Now that I have brainstormed the scales of manufacture, I can begin to link some of my notes together to help me in structuring my answer. I could do this in many ways. I could use colour coding, such as the blue here that links time, costing and skill, or the pink which links processes and automation. Or maybe I could use arrows to link different ideas together. Numbering is another method which is often used. I tend to begin writing my answer, however, and then use my brainstorm as a checklist to ensure that I have included the points that I wish to. Here I am going to begin an introduction to introduce what batch manufacturing and one-off production actually are. Now that I have introduced batch manufacturing and one-off production, I'm going to start choosing one of the considerations I brainstormed within my notes. I think I will use costing to start with. As our command word is to discuss, I am making sure that when I write my answer, I am doing so by considering the effects of cost on both one-off production and batch manufacturing. This in turn links to materials and the skill set of the workers. As I have now got to the end of the space for our answer to be written in, I am going to read back through my answer. And as I do, I'm going to tick off where I think I may have achieved a mark. In batch manufacturing, all of the wooden wardrobes will be the same, whilst in one-off production, changes are often made to the wooden wardrobes to suit the needs and wants of a particular client. Now, although I think that I have achieved a mark there for saying the difference between batch manufacturing and one-off production, I feel that I could have done some editing. I feel that where it says in batch manufacturing at the beginning, I should have wrote also a specified number of identical products are made, meaning all of the wooden wardrobes will be the same. Whilst in one-off production, and here I think I should have inserted one product is made at a time for a specific customer. Changes are often made to the wooden wardrobes to suit the needs and wants of a particular client. That to me is a much better introduction, so don't be afraid to edit as I have done, but just make sure that it is very clear to the examiner anything that you add. So here I've used a little star to mark that, and then I've also tagged the second bit onto the second line. The addition of this detail and clarification would have helped me to gain a second mark here. Changing from one-off to batch production could therefore reduce the manufacturing cost per wardrobe to make. That would be a third mark, which could be a saving the company could pass on to their customers by lowering the price the wardrobe is sold for. That would be another mark, or they could save to increase their own profits. That would be our fifth mark. The lower manufacturing cost will stem from the repetitive nature of batch production. Another mark right there, meaning the materials and components can be bought in bulk, which is often cheaper. And again, that's another point, so that gives us another mark. As workers are repeating the same task, their skill set may be lower, and thus they may be paid less. And again, that would be another mark. So at the moment, we can see that our answer probably only has 9 marks. However, we really need to achieve 10. So we're not going to just leave this answer. Instead, we're going to look down our brainstorm, which we did earlier, and see if we can draw out another point or so to ensure that we do achieve full marks for this question. When we go through our brainstorm from earlier, we can see that we haven't really talked yet about the time difference between one-off production and batch manufacturing, automation and quality control. So I think that is what I will add on to my next part of the answer. There is often additional paper on an exam for you to add to your answers for the longer questions. However, if not, I am sure you will be able to find some space to add what you need to write. Again, just make sure it is very clear for the examiner to see. So I've now added on, dedicated jigs and automation may be invested in for batch production. That's the next mark that I needed, but I'm going to expand on it further just to make sure that I do get the 10 full marks. I then go on to say the cost can equally be divided per wardrobe that will be made within the batch. Another mark. The use of jigs and automation should speed up the time of manufacture for each wardrobe, meaning more can be made than in a one-off. The addition of this information has definitely ensured that we have given enough information within our answer to achieve the 10 marks available for this question. Your answer may have included other points also. For example, I could have chosen to expand my answer by writing about quality control, which would have led on well from my discussions about the workers, processes or automation. However, in the exam, you do need to be mindful of the time that you have available, and generally we would advise you to spend no more than 1 minute per mark on a question. So for this particular question, we would expect it to take approximately 10 minutes. Despite there being many things that you could write about one-off production and batch manufacturing, when you are reading through and checking your answer, do make sure that the points you have made are relevant to the question. You should also try to link it into the product which you have chosen. It's really important that you have made enough relevant points to access the full amount of marks available. So, if there are 10 marks for the question like there is on this one, you should at least include 10 points which ensure you consider both one-off production and batch manufacturing.